I'll start with the prologue. Whipping ass wasn't so hard, Stella Hardesty thought, as she took aim with the little Raven 25 she took off a cheating son of a bitch in Kansas City last month. What was hard was making sure it stayed whooped, especially on a day when it hit 100 degrees before noon and you were having hot flashes. And today's quote on your calendar for women who do too much read, "Find serenity in unexpected places." Fuck serenity, Stella said, and she shot the trailer. So, I wrote this book exactly, I figured this out today. I didn't even tell my friends this. 2 years ago, I finished this book. And that's pretty fast for publishing time. But I was going through my midlife crisis, though I didn't know it at the time. And every year, my husband, for Christmas, would get me this calendar for women who do too much. Do you guys know that? So, I was a housewife for a long time. My kids are almost grown. And I would get this calendar, and I realized the reason was I did a lot of whining. I would say to my husband, when I say I was a housewife, I didn't have a job outside the home, but I was a Girl Scout leader, I was a catechist, I was the art mom, I was the classroom helper, and in kindergarten I was the cooking mom. So I've been kind of like the whole gamut of jobs, and I was really busy and I was really stressed. So my husband thought it'd be great to get me this calendar, which was kind of sweet. And every day you'd peel off a piece and it would say something like, "Buy yourself a bouquet of tulips." So I would go to Trader Joe's and buy the fucking tulips and bring them home, and I wouldn't feel any better. And then the next day you'd peel it back and it would say, "Find the beauty in a child's face." And I would look at my child and be like, you gotta be kidding me. So this went on for a while, and then I was 44, and I decided, my husband and I had decided that when my kids grew up, I'd have to get a job. And I had a variety of jobs, but I didn't really want to do that, so I thought I'd write all the time. So as my friends know, I started writing literally all the time, like around the clock, and I wrote this book. And I didn't realize it was about me, but it turns out it's about me. I'm Stella. But I'm Stella with a different job. Stella has a job basically killing abusive spouses. And the first one she kills is her own. I should add that I was a little irritated at my husband too. So. Okay. One of the biggest rip-offs in the universe had to be when the pleasant buzz you took to bed with you at midnight turned itself into queasy can't sleep at 5 a.m. Where the hell did all that lovely sparkle go? Stella had drained the Johnny. She hadn't really intended to, but some nights were like that. Some nights were for thinking and drinking, when it seemed like you couldn't do one without the other. Stella rarely drank in the days before Ollie died. Ollie was her husband. She figured that someone in the house ought to stay sober, and Ollie frequently wasn't up for the job. The Johnny thing, she discovered Johnny Walker Black a few weeks into her new life as a widow, and was so grateful for the way it took the edge off that she started spending more and more time with the bottle. There was a stretch there, 4 or 5 months, that didn't bear recalling, even if she could remember anything through the whiskey haze. But these days, her relationship with Johnny was more measured. Once Stella took up exercise, jogging around the neighborhood and dragging Ollie's barely used Bowflex out of storage, she didn't need the alcohol-induced numbing as much, just a nightly drink or occasionally two, except for the rare night when two didn't do the trick, when she needed an extra layer of fuzzy loveliness. If only she could skip the early morning sleeplessness that always followed. In those pre-dawn hours, Stella sometimes amused herself by imagining how she would do in the joint. It was luck more than anything that had kept the law from investigating her sideline business, but her luck couldn't hold forever. Eventually, one of her parolees would decide to roll the dice and turn her in, or the long arm of the law would somehow get wise enough to catch her in the act of rehabilitating a subject, which she does using bondage gear. Either way, questions would be asked, leads would be followed, and when that happened, odds were good that Stella would be headed for jail. Stella wasn't sure she much cared. Life with Ollie had been worse than anything the prison system could dish out. Life without Ollie was better, but it was still lonely. Becoming a stone-cold enforcer had changed her, taking away any desire she'd ever had to play nice just to fit in. She called it like she saw it now, cussed when she felt like it, didn't back down. Jail didn't scare Stella. With an assault conviction or two, she figured her reputation would precede her. Her nickname would be some variation on Hardesty, probably Hard-Ass. Of course, she didn't get a handle like that for free. She'd probably have to shank somebody on the first day or something. And I'm just going to read a tiny little bit more, but one of the things that happened to me, Danville is actually lovely, and I always feel guilty for saying horrible, horrible, horrible things about it. because it is a lovely place and it was a great place to raise my children, and I made a lot of really nice friends there. However, the minute that my daughter graduates from high school, I'm moving. And one of the things that I think is maybe not the best thing that Danville does is that it does not allow for a real breadth of identity. And I think that's a disservice to everyone that lives there, both those who fit the mold naturally and those who don't. And one of the things I thought about when I was writing this book is that obviously Stella's totally fictional, but she has an identity crisis. She's behaved within, the parameters of her community, which is very like where I grew up, very, very heartland. And she discovers that she doesn't really care for behaving. So when she sets out to have a romance again, she discovers that the type of man she's looking for is different as well. And she falls in love with the sheriff, which is kind of inconvenient because he's a lawman and all that. But I really enjoyed writing the scenes where she's contemplating romance, because one of the things that I think our society does, and certainly in Danville, well, I'd say in the larger society, the message is, if you're over 45, forget it, you're done, no more romance for you. In Danville, it's, if you're over 45, let's get you fixed up a little bit, hun, then you might have a few more go-rounds. That's just my opinion. Stella could only open one eye. She could see enough to know she was in a hospital room, but the details were flickery and vague. It was her right eye that still seemed to be working, and for a moment she thought that was a good thing, her being right-handed and all. Then she realized that made no sense at all. Her next thought was that she must have had a stroke that not only left half her body incapacitated, but also played havoc with her reasoning. Great, she thought, not just the lurching and drooling, but embarrassing conversational gaffes too. And then it occurred to her that such a state wasn't all that different from lots of the customers down at BJ's as the evening wore on, and BJ's is a roadhouse. And she felt a little more cheerful, despite a splitting pain that seemed to bisect her head as though someone had stuck a shiv in one ear and shoved till they saw the point coming out the other. I might have to blow Big Johnson, she thought, the owner of the bar, just to celebrate if and when she got back on her feet again, and to cement her new status as a regular in his joint, since she probably wouldn't be welcome to drink anywhere else. Is that so? The sound of Goat is the sheriff. The sound of Goat's voice, deep, rumbly, and close, gave Stella a shock that started in the gut and blasted out, causing her arms and legs to spasm, and her reluctant left eye to gap open just a little, so she could see out of both her eyes. And what she was looking at was Goat's broad, tan face leaning in and staring at her with what appeared to be equal parts concern and amusement. She could smell him too, his woodsy scent that had notes of laundry softener and coffee, and a faint hint of man, just sheer, sweaty, testosterone-y man. That final bit gave her a different sort of tremor that let her know that another quadrant of her anatomy had also pulled through. Goat, she said, licking her lips, which felt sticky and crusty. It occurred to her that it was unlikely anyone had bothered to brush her teeth. And Goat was leaning close enough she was going to have trouble talking to him and sparing him the effects of her breath at the same time. You got any gum? He stared at her and then split into a grin. Whoa, copy editor, huh? Little error there. Gum, you got the shit kicked out of you, got left to marinate in the golf pond, dragged out by a couple of stone teenagers, and all you can think about is asking for gum? Oh, that. Goat's words filled in the details on the sketchy framework of last night's history. She remembered getting into a jam, oh yeah, and the thing with the gun, and then she started, oh, I'm skipping a part, then she started to feel a little better. What's so funny, Dusty? You still thinking about going down on Big Johnson? Stella felt her good eye go wide. Shit, she'd said it out loud. I didn't say that, she protested. What are you talking about? Yeah, just a minute ago you were coming out of La La Land, all those drugs they got in you for stitching up and whatnot must be wearing off. And you were saying, I said I got to show Big Johnson, Stella said, feeling her face grow hot. She could also feel little itchy pinpricks of sensation, and she put her fingertips to her cheek, felt stitches. Well, damn. Traced them from close to the bridge of her nose, down the back of her jaw on the left, and there was some sort of bandage and tape thing going on up on top of her skull, too. She continued her exploration and found a little nest of stitches buried in a shave patch on the other side of her head, the skin there raised up in a sizable goose egg. Yeah, what are you planning on showing him? Obviously not my beauty pageant sash, Stella said, sighing. So I think that's all the Stella we need for tonight. Thank you.